And so did the tourist trade. Families in minivans trekked across the country to gape at Palo Duro Canyon, hike its trails, and camp in its depths. But for me, Canyon, Texas, represented a million childhood memories, all of which melded together into a comfortable poultice and made me feel as though an enormous Band-Aid had been wrapped around me like a shawl. "Cecily, you job hunting today?" My dad stood in the kitchen of our family cabin, in his park ranger uniform, holding a coffee pot a foot above the table, and peering at me with a perplexed expression, as though he couldn't believe I was truly sitting in his cabin, eating bacon and eggs. "Sure am." I held my mug out toward him. "You know if anybody's hiring?" Dad was only 49, but since my departure after high school graduation, smile lines had appeared around his mouth. It was like his face kept grinning, even when he told it to relax. He lowered the coffee pot to the table. "Seems like I saw a sign in the window at the pool hall, but I reckon that wouldn't suit." He chuckled. "Olivia might have a position down at the visitor center, though. I'll ask her about it." Minimum wage at the state park would barely cover my car payment, much less rent for my own place. But with no experience and no degree, I couldn't be picky. "Thanks, Daddy." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, and never had been. My dad and I had only seen each other a handful of times in the last 10 years, but he still seemed as familiar to me as the day I left. I unscrewed the cap on a bottle of hazelnut coffee flavoring, poured a hefty dose into my cup, and then reached for a second bottle, French vanilla, and dumped in a little of it as well. My mom had taught me that. I looked around the room, experiencing a sense of déjà vu that took me back to my childhood. When Mom died, Daddy had removed her personal things from the bedroom, but the open area that served as our kitchen and living room hadn't changed much over the years. It almost seemed as if Mom might walk in and sit between us, like old times, passing dishes back and forth and chattering up a storm, laughing, and always telling me I was pretty. "So," Daddy dipped his knife into the butter and scratched the stainless steel across a piece of toast. "You know you could have come home as soon as he divorced you, Cecily. Why wait a year?" He stabbed a slice of bacon. His mention of my divorce didn't bother me, and neither did his aggression toward his breakfast meat. The question itself didn't even faze me, because it was valid. Oh, you know, tying up loose ends. I supposed a stint in a psychiatric hospital could be termed a loose end, but I didn't mention it. Most likely, he wasn't upset that I waited a year to come home after Brett served me divorce papers, but because there were divorce papers at all. If I knew my dad, he was thinking that if I had come home earlier, he might have been able to help me. He might have saved his little girl some pain. He might have talked Brett out of it. That was the real reason I'd waited. I smiled weakly, then shoved a bite of scrambled eggs into my mouth with a chunk of bacon. "Cess?" His chin jutted forward. "He didn't hurt you, did he?" "No, Daddy." "Then," the tines of his fork made 2 circles above his coffee cup, "he was unfaithful." So many questions. Brett just said he didn't love me anymore, and he wanted out. The word love seemed to make my dad flinch. "And what Brett wants, Brett gets." It went without saying that I was no longer what Brett wanted. I cut a bite of eggs with the side of my fork, picked at it, then mashed it flat. After a few more jabs, it resembled yellow sand. My self-esteem wouldn't allow me to explain my jigsaw puzzle past, or my sinking fear that the lid of the puzzle box, with the picture on top, had been tossed in the garbage. There was no way to convey the depth of my loneliness over the past year, or how crazy I'd felt while I was in recovery, or the emptiness that still consumed me. He cleared his throat. "I bumped into..."